Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, we're going to continue our gasket refresh of my brother's 302 small block V8 Ford engine, often called the 5-liter or the 5.0. And we are going to be removing and replacing the valve cover gaskets. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, moving on with our engine gasket refresh. Next we've decided to go after the valve covers. Again, we're going with Felpro. Part number is VS13264T. The actual gaskets look like this. And these are not floppy, they are formed. There is metal in these, probably aluminum, for them to retain a shape. And they're pretty nice, so we're gonna work on that. I'm gonna bring you over here. So what size are these nuts and fasteners?
They are 7/16.
Okay, so you're gonna use 7/16 to get these off. And you're gonna need to inspect the valve cover. Once you get it off, make sure it's not been banged up or warped too much, because if your surface is warped, then the gasket's not going to seal right. And of course, just like with the pan gasket we went over earlier, you're going to pop this loose. There's going to be RTV, there could be an old cork gasket, could be an old silicone gasket. You're going to need to clean all that out, get good clean sealing surfaces on both the block and on the valve cover.
Oh, did I already get that?
And then you'll want to reinstall. Okay guys, this is what we've got. It was heavily RTV'd, so we actually had to use a pry bar to get this out. This is a cork gasket. I don't know if it's the original, but we know it's cork. Look right there. The original style gaskets, when this thing was made 30 years ago, was all cork. They didn't switch to the nicer formed silicone until later. So again, I don't know if this is original or it got replaced and it was still cork, because I think you can still buy that one. It's cheaper, but then it leaks, and then you waste an entire tube of RTV to try to seal it, and then by the time you do that, you should have just bought the silicone gasket and life would have been better. So you'll notice we got varnish is kind of bad in here, but it matches what we saw when we looked inside the oil pan and we looked at the crank and all the main bearing caps and everything. The good news here is on these push rods and their rockers, this is pretty good. I shook them all, none of them are loose. We don't have any sticky valves. As you can see, there's oil puddled at the end of each rocker, which means that oil pressure is good and oil is making its way up the push rod.
It's got chipped somehow
to get in here. So all of this looks good. So other than more Farmer Bob shenanigans, the actual oiling system looks good over here. Alright, here is the passenger side set of rockers and push rods, and one thing we immediately notice is that is a bit of enamel off of the valve cover right there. And that's, yes, that is a stick. Somewhere along the way, a stick managed to get in, probably through PCV breather. There's a specific filter for it. We noticed it was missing. And when we check these rockers, EGR is kind of in the way there. All these seem good. They're all getting oil, so the oiling system does look good over here as well when you're not shoving it with yard trash. Same deal, cork gasket is what I see. We got some remnants of it here against the block, but the bulk of it is sticking onto the valve cover. We think that Farmer Bob probably RTV'd the valve cover side, and that's why it's sticking there. But check this out. This is why you got to replace them, folks. This actually split. See that? Whether it was over compressed or this is just age, this had failed through this section and it was probably leaking like a sieve. One thing I wanted to point out real quick is it does have a tab over here, cover side. So this side faces your valve cover itself, which means it's facing up, so to speak. Keep that in mind when you place the gasket, otherwise you're installing it upside down. Okay, so we laid the gasket on. There's only one way it goes if you pay attention to the cover upside. And then I'm going to show you the torque sequence I do. According to the Fel-Pro gasket instructions, we're looking at 5 foot-pounds, which is basically nothing. So I'm using a 1/4 drive, 1/4 socket, and I'm not the strongest dude in the world, so when I elbow torque this, it's not going to be crazy. So we're going to start here in the middle at the bottom, crank it till it feels kind of snug, come over here, upper left, crank it till it feels snug, come over here. It's going to be a little tricky to film. Hello, random bug. And come over here. Again, crank it till we feel snug. And then we're going to come down over here. Same deal. Come up here. Come down here. At that point, you've done all 6. Do it again. Because lo and behold, it's loose. This is what's called a torque sequence. We're doing this to make sure that we have even pressure across the entire gasket. There's no side that's loose. So I go around 3 times because small bolts are notorious for having a little something loose. I remember I was working on my truck and the lower intake bolts just kept squibbling loose at their torque value. I had to go around like 4 or 5 times before they finally all behaved. Alright, that's it. So that's a good repair on valve cover gaskets. This is a small aside for the video, but we got some mouse bites here on this fuel injector, and this engine is transitory. We're intending to put a 351 in this thing eventually, so all I'm going to do for now is I got some liquid electrical tape. I'm going to coat this up so it's no longer exposed, and as long as we don't have a dead cylinder, we're going with it until the 351 gets dropped in. If you haven't seen it before, this is what the liquid electrical tape looks like when it dries. It makes a rubber coating, and I glopped on quite a bit, so it actually, the 2 wires have gotten stuck together, but the damaged section is thoroughly coated, so I'm not too worried about wires further oxidizing or something shorting or stuff like that. Alright, that's going to do it for this valve cover gasket replacement video for my brother's 1993 Ford F250 named Ty. If you liked what you saw, leave a comment. I read them, I like them, and generally I'll reply to them. I've even learned stuff from them too. If you like this video, if it helped you, if it's something that's making your project happen, please like, share, and subscribe. That helps to grow the channel, get towards the goal of monetization, to bring more projects to bear. And remember, I make the mistakes, so you don't have to. I'll see you guys next episode.